Hall of Fame broadcaster Marty Brenneman here, and he's the best storyteller in the game, and it's time to sit back, relax, and have some laughs. Welcome to the Mayor's Office, and here's your host, Sean Casey.
Bam, Chinch, we're back at it, man.
Yes, we are, and I'm rocking the red, white, and blue because we got a true American hero today, and I could not be more excited, bro.
Oh, man, I've been excited for this one for a long time, you know. This guy, you got to lock him down months in advance, and we did, and here we are, doing this. This guy's got such a great story. First off, he's a New York Times best-selling author, has a wonderful, wonderful book that I'm reading called Staring Down the Wolf. A lot of people probably know him from Unbeatable Mind. He has the Unbeatable Mind podcast, which is now the Mark Devine show. Awesome, awesome podcast. If you haven't dive into that yet, it's so good. He also wrote a book called The Way of the SEAL. If you go back early on, he started off as a CPA, decided, you know what, that's not my purpose in life. I'm going down the track and became a Navy SEAL. Graduated first in his class. That's a whole nother story that he's going to unpack for us, which is absolutely fascinating. Has become an entrepreneur, started the SEAL Fit program, where he really integrated the warrior development with Unbeatable Mind into that. 20 years as a SEAL, 25 as a martial artist, 15 yoga. This guy, we could probably do the introduction for 2 hours, but let's just bring him in. Commander Mark Devine. Commander Mark, thank you so much, brother.
Yeah, hoo-yah, man. It's good to see you guys.
So great, man. So great to see you too. Our mutual friend Brian Johnson had introduced us months back, and I thought it was great. The one time that we talked on the phone, you came on air and you were in the what's the chamber, in the hyperbaric chamber.
Hyperbaric chamber, yeah. It looks like I'm in outer space. I love that.
Yeah. Oh, it was so great, man. It was so great. So first off, man, thank you so much for joining us, and we appreciate having you on. I want to go back a little bit, before we get into how amazing your books are and everything like that. I want to go back to your journey to the SEALs, because I think that is such an interesting point to start, because like so many of us in our early 20s, we don't necessarily know exactly what we want to do. And I think when I look back at your when I look back at your journey, you start off as a CPA out of college, out of Colgate, and then your journey kind of took you down to the path of the SEALs. Could you just unpack that for us a little bit of, how you end up being, going?
How the heck does a CPA become a Navy SEAL?
Yes. How the heck does that happen? Yes.
Well, clearly, one of those two career choices was not right for me. You figure out which one. But let me just characterize it like this. When we're, brought into this world, our mind is like a piece of clay, right? It's just this unformed, unshaped thing. Obviously, it's a brain. I'm talking about the mind. The brain is the brain. And then it immediately starts getting trained. It gets trained by your parents, and it gets trained by, society and culture and religion and academics and all that. And it's really, it takes on this kind of shape that you then mistake for your own reality. So that's what happened to me, which has happened to everybody. It's the common state of things until you begin to train your own mind. So I grew up kind of like that, with an untrained mind, because I didn't know. Nobody taught me how to train my mind and how to find my own path and how to unwind the deep grooves of culture and epigenetics and, human history, basically. And so my family was a business family. We've got a family business that's been around for well over 100 years. And, it was an expectation that the guys would go into the family business. A correlate to that expectation was that anything else was not a suitable career, except maybe being a doctor, right? My mom kind of had that one was on the list for me, right? And I even I was pre-med when I went to Colgate. I lasted 6 months at any rate. So, I went to a pretty good college, but didn't do great academically because I didn't have a lot of confidence. There's a whole nother story behind that. Partly, again, because my mind was not trained, I lacked this confidence because there was a lot of tumult and chaos in my family, and that worked its way into kind of low self-esteem, which I glossed over with overachievement and perfectionism, but I still had deep, low confidence, believe it or not. And so I was an okay student, average student. I spent most of my time doing sports, competitive swimming and rowing and triathlons and chasing women. That was a competitive sport for me, by the way. So academics for low
for many people, probably. Yeah,
exactly. And anyway, so senior year comes around and I'm like, oh, what am I going to do now? Right? Am I going to go back to the family business? I don't really want to do that. So along comes all the companies doing their recruiting tour through Colgate. And I got picked up by a company called Coopers & Lybrand. It's now PricewaterhouseCoopers. Anyways, long story short, I go down to Manhattan. I go to NYU Business School, where a whole flock of us went to get our MBAs, and I become a certified public accountant working for Coopers. And, according to life, all systems go, and I was kicking ass, right? Had a great job, MBA, CPA. My parents were like high-fiving me, telling everybody how freaking awesome I was. But I was miserable, right? Absolutely miserable. I couldn't stand the work I was doing. I didn't like the people I was around necessarily. At least I wasn't inspired by them. Good people, but it wasn't my thing. And so what saved me, and this is really kind of the pivot for this story here, is in 1985 is when I graduated Colgate and started working, about 6 weeks later, and went to school, and that whole thing for my MBA. My spirit told me to keep training. Like physically, I was not going to let myself go into this long, slow decline like I saw around me. Everybody, if you're a college athlete and then you don't continue, most people don't continue training. Yeah, exactly right. It's so common, right? Because you get swept up in life, and then come the kids, and then come more and more responsibilities, and then so suddenly your body at 28 looks like a 40-year-old body, and at 40 it looks like a 60-year-old body, and you're kind of screwed at that point. And I looked at that and I said, there's something inside of me that said it doesn't have to be that way. I now know it's probably because I was a yogi in my last lifetime, or many. Right. And so I learned that daily discipline, movement, and proper effective breathing and eating well and all that, you can keep yourself really healthy. And I learned that at a young age. But what helped me learn that was, so here's my routine in the morning while I was in New York. I would get up at like 5:30 and go out for about a 6-mile run, get back here, do some stretching and some journaling and stuff. Then I'd go to work. At lunchtime, everyone else would go to, have a high carb lunch with a beer, and I would go to the gym. I had 1 hour, and so I'd go there and I'd bang out as fast a workout as I could, which would look a lot like a CrossFit workout today, but back then CrossFit didn't exist, right? Because I had an hour, you know what I mean? So
right. Get my heart rate up, down.
Yeah,
up,
I would find 3 or 4 things to work on, and I just bang it out.
Yeah,
like that's good. And then they would let us off at about 5:30 because we had to be down at the World Trade Center at NYU at 7 for classes. And of course, everyone would go home and have dinner and get changed and maybe prep for school. But me, I looked at that as, hey, that's a training window. And I'm like, what am I going to squeeze in here? I've already done my run and I've already done my workout. So what's it going to be? So I looked at rowing, but I couldn't fit that in. I looked at swimming, couldn't fit that in. And then one day I was walking past walking home, and I passed this martial arts studio, and it was really just pure happenstance. I literally heard the sounds coming from the second floor, and I stopped in my tracks. I looked up, and I'm standing under the sign that says World Sado Karate Headquarters. So I go up and check it out, and I'm like, holy shit, this is it, And what told me was what I saw in terms of the grandmaster who had created the style of karate and who was leading the black belt class that I stumbled into. Tadashi Nakamura. Amazing. So he was my first real mentor when it came to training my mind. Turns out he was a Zen master.
Wow. And
so I started training Zen meditation with him at 21 years old, and I never stopped. Now, it moved on from, the prototypical Zen practice to other things, some which came through other martial arts, some which I learned through yoga, some which I innovated on my own. But ultimately, in those first formative years, when I started meditating, that is what radically changed and started to reshape the clay of my mind. And when I started to create those new neuroplastic grooves, and I started to get new information and access new feeling states and new ways of looking at myself, I had a complete transformation where suddenly I was like, I realize within maybe 2 years of starting that karate Zen program that I had chosen poorly, that I had chosen a path that my parents and society had laid out for me, but it wasn't my calling. It wasn't what I was meant to be doing, Sean. And that led me to asking different kind of questions. Actually, for the first time in my life, to actually ask questions. Right, of myself. I've since learned that the quality of one's life is based upon the quality of the questions you ask yourself. Because then when you start asking yourself, the answers will come, right? And so that what I'm alluding to is a deep introspective practice of clarifying your why and asking, why do I do what I do? What am I going to do about it? And how am I going to be more effective in doing what I'm supposed to be doing? And then when you align around those things, you find that success literally just comes spontaneously and effortlessly, which is what happened with me with the SEALs. So I didn't have suddenly an epiphany where like, I'm done being a CPA, I'm going to go be a Navy SEAL. I didn't even know what the SEALs were at the time.
Wow.
There weren't a lot of TV shows about the SEALs back in 1985. There were exactly zero.
So how did you find out about the SEALs?
Well, So the way this worked for me was I got this kind of growing sense that I wasn't meant to be a CPA or even in business. So the questioning led me to ask what, if not that, then what? And I kept getting this sense that I was really a warrior, that I was meant to be a warrior. And so I started to ask, well, how could that play out? Like, what could that look like? And right around that time, and this is how, synchronicity actually works, right? When you start asking really good questions and you're getting close to your own truth, then the universe kind of seems to line up to support you externally, right? The reality is you create your own world anyways, I've since learned. And so, of course, the external world is going to start lining up with the internal because it's a projection of the internal. Well, because I started to feel and experience myself as a warrior, externally what happened was I was shown the Navy SEALs. And similar to how I was shown karate and Zen, it happened when I was just kind of wandering and pondering, became one of my favorite things to do, right? There should be a word for that.
Yeah.
Right? And I stumbled across a Navy recruiting office and there was a poster in the window and the poster was of the Navy SEALs and the title was Be Someone Special. It didn't say anything about the SEALs. It just said Be Someone Special. But on the, you can imagine what the imagery looked like. It looked like, it looked like you would expect, people free falling out of the airplanes at 30,000 feet in the middle of the night,
You're like, sign me up.
Exactly. It was like this beacon just going, boom, sign here. And I was like, holy shit, that's it. There's a lot of little details, of course, in terms of the navigating my way into the Navy, right? And I had the recruiter say, don't get your hopes up, dude. Everyone who comes in is from, is either in the Navy already or, we take 2 people a year from the civilian world like you into the officer. I wanted to be an officer because I was going to have an MBA for gosh sakes. I thought I should just be an officer. But I said, you know what, I'm going to go for this. And so I did. And I kept on my training, but I added a few things to my mental training. So my daily regimen now became 6 a.m. run, come back, and I would do my meditation. And my meditation included a breath control practice, what I had learned, the concentration training I'd learned through Zen, and then a visualization practice, which I had initially learned through my collegiate swimming, which you and I talked about in my podcast.
Yes.
And so what I did is I turned that sports type of visualization, that practice visualization, into practicing becoming the type of man worthy to be a Navy SEAL in a future state. And that has since proven to be one of the most powerful mental practices ever, because I was creating a memory of a future me that the more I practiced that memory, the more it became part of my neurophysiology until my very being had already experienced it. And I call that winning in the mind before stepping foot on the battlefield. And I remember very clearly having a moment, about a year into this new visualization, 9 months into this new visualization practice. I've been talking to the Navy for that whole 9 months, still no joy. And they were telling me, don't get your hopes up, start thinking about a different path. And I just on pure faith, just kept on driving forward with the expectation that, something's going to happen here. And I recall this morning when I did my work, my morning ritual, and I just had this overwhelming feeling of certainty wash over me that I was definitely going to be a Navy SEAL. I'd gotten in. And maybe that's when the decision had been made, and it took a while to work through the bureaucratic channels. But about a week later, the recruiter finally called me and he said, "Hey, congratulations, Mark. You got one of the 2 billets,
Wow.
And I was like, "Yeah, I know." And he was like, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, you're going to make a good SEAL because you're weird."
Perfect.
I know, right? Perfect. Anyway, so it was meditation that transformed me from CPA to Navy SEAL. But it was, it was really more the combination of these skills, which I later now call unbeatable mind. It was the breath training, which allowed me to be very calm and focused. It was the concentration training that allowed me to like laser focus on the what I needed to do to become a Navy SEAL, both the training as well as the mental prep. It was the visualization and creating that future memory that changed my neurobiology to be able to, turn that from a desire into a certainty. And obviously I had some athleticism, so if I was not meant to be a Navy SEAL, this would have been a fool's errand, right? And so there's a really important thing, and this is something I teach, like, a lot of people can desire to be a Navy SEAL. And I can tell you, I saw a great quote the other day. There were literally 250 Navy SEALs during the Vietnam era, and I've met 1,000 of them. So there's a lot of people who desire to be Navy SEALs and who are out there claiming that they were, but they weren't.
That's so great.
Because they didn't either have the courage to go for it, or they just weren't physically capable. So anytime you have a very audacious goal, like NFL, whatever, or pro baseball or whatever, you have to have the physical aptitude, but that's just the entry qualifier, right? That's the prerequisite.
Yeah.
That's the basics. And all the rest is mental and emotional. I learned that. I was very, very fortunate to learn that in my early 20s. And then it served me well, like you mentioned in the intro. When I went through SEAL training, 185 badasses standing there with me at the starting point. And in fact, this is kind of a fun story. When I went to BUD/S, I had orders to class up in class 171, but I got there and I found out, I got there on like a Thursday, and Friday I go in and check in and all that. And I find out my class isn't even going to start for about 8 to 10 weeks. And they were in this this thing that used to be called 4th phase. There's 3 phases of training, and this was 4th phase, which is pre-training. Right. I don't know why they didn't call it 0 phase or whatever. Oh, but anyways, I was like, there's no effing way that I want to wait 8 to 10 weeks. Like, I'm ready to go now. And so I started asking, I was like, how do I class up in 170, which starts on Monday? And everyone's looking at me like, you can't. I was like, I don't take no for an answer. And so they're like, okay, you got to go talk to Lieutenant May, who's down at the combat training tank, which is SEAL speak for pool. And he's in charge of 4th phase, and he's in charge of who's going to class up on Monday. And he's working with class 170. So I jog my way. You have to jog everywhere, run everywhere in the SEAL. So I run over to the combat training tank across the base, and I go in there, and class 170 is there, about 184 dudes, all standing on the side of the pool. They're doing crossovers and breath hold training. And on the high diving board is this, 6'5" Adonis, with like piercing blue eyes. And it was Lieutenant May, prototypical Navy SEAL. And he's a stud, and everything stopped as soon as I walked in, right? And it's all like the seas parted with these students, and there I am standing in my utes and boots and the side of the pool, and I'm like, holy shit, what am I doing?
This is a bad idea. This is
a bad idea, Mark. And Lieutenant May looks down at me and he's like, thanks for interrupting my class. How can I help you, enzyme? Which is derogatory for ensign. So I was like, okay, this is showtime. I said, Lieutenant May, my name is Ensign Devine, and I've got orders to class up in class 171, but I want to, and I'm ready to class up in 170 on Monday. And he just looks at me and goes, okay, that's not normal. Because most people are like, give me more time. I'll take the time, right?
Yeah. And the fact that you have the balls to be there right there, he's probably like, this guy's got real problems.
Yeah. So I think I won him over right there, but he's like, okay, well, I don't have time to talk about it right now, but prove to us that you can swim, at least swim 50 meters underwater. Right. And so I started to take my boots off. He goes, no, boots and utes. And so I'm like, oh, this is going to be interesting. So
never done this before.
Yeah, I've never done that before with combat boots on. That's going to be a real game changer. So I'm like, oh, screw it. I can do this. So I take a few deep breaths and I jump in and I'm underwater and I'm like, holy, my boots are like anchors, trying to kick, with those boots on was ridiculous. So fortunately I was a competitive breaststroker, right? And so I had a really strong pull, but I've got clothes and these boots on. And so,
oh my God,
I'm kicking across. And by the end, I get, by the first leg, I'm like, oh shit, this is going to be hard. So I just kicked off like a madman and then did this underwater pull out, got about halfway across the pool and kicked and pulled and finally got to the other end and dragged myself out, and I was fine. But it was challenging, but it wasn't impossible. And I stood up and he says, go meet me in my office in an hour. And he let me into class 171.
Wow, no way.
Yeah. He completely cut against orders. Like literally, when you have a set of orders.
Right, you can't do that. You can't do that.
It's not like an option, right? So apparently it was for May and I.
When you became, like Officer May, did anyone ever do that to you? Did anyone ever come up to you and say, hey, no. Was that unheard of, basically?
Well, I think it's probably unheard of. The other thing that was unheard of is, you mentioned I graduated as honor man in my class. So 6 months later, BUDS is actually it's 9 months now. We used to do 6 months at BUDS, and then we go to the SEAL team and do another 3 months. Actually, more like 6 months, because it was 3 months of training and then 3 months of qualification work and then interviews with all the enlisted and senior officers. And you wouldn't get your trident, the Navy SEAL trident, until almost a year later. But now they do it all at BUDS in 9 months. They do BUDS and then what's called SEAL qualification training. So for me, though, the 6 months when you get your trident was how it worked. And so 6 months later, there were only 19 of us who had graduated out of the 185. 19. Everyone else had either quit or gotten injured, which means they quit. We call it a quinjury, quit injury. If you get injured at BUDS, it's because you mentally checked out and you allowed the injury. And some people could push back on that, especially if you went to BUDS and got injured. But I firmly believe that the mind, you create your reality, and you saw this in professional sports. And if your mind is really knows that it's going to succeed, beyond a shadow of a doubt, then it really takes care of the body. And it forces you to do the things to take care of the body. And otherwise, it doesn't work out, which means you probably weren't meant to be there. And so I was there, number one in my class. And this is the other thing that was unheard of, is my entire small team, we call a boat crew, was there with me. And it's because I committed to them that we would get through this training together. I taught them box breathing. I taught them visualization. I taught them meditation. And I also taught them how to radically focus just on what was right in front of us and not just, not get our minds too far ahead of the game. So we were practicing micro goals. I call those 4 skills, by the way, the big 4 skills: breath control, positive self-talk, imagery, positive imagery of your end state, of your victory, and micro goals. Are like, you put those 4 together in that order and it's money, right? But they have to be trained. And so what the innovation that I brought to the team was not, is looking at those things not as concepts, but as daily practices. And that's kind of a cornerstone of now my unbeatable training. When I got out of the SEALs, I was like, I got off active duty after about 7 years, primarily because I got married and I was heading in a different direction, and I was kind of outgrown the institution of the SEALs, even though I love the team and I love the operations.
Right.
You can only grow as far as the cultural or organizational constraints of any organizations you align with, right? I think that's why people who are committed to growth really struggle in an organization that holds them back.
Because they hold you down, right? They hold you down. But I want to go back, when you say 19 guys got through that BUDS training, 7 of them was your boat crew. right? 7 guys. And you obviously would say, hey, I taught them Zen meditation. I taught them how to think. When did you have time to do that? Like, and how did they buy? I just find that fascinating.
Oh, it's all on the fly. You know what I mean? It's all while we're under the boat, you know.
Really?
Hey guys, just slow down your breathing, breathe through your nose, calm down, just focus on, you know, getting over the berm or getting to that sign up there. You know, so I was teaching the micro goal. And then my dialogue led to positive dialogue amongst the teams. And so that anytime anyone would suffer, you know, you'd hear someone say, we got this, you know, piece of cake, easy day, just focus on, you know, just get to that next piece or part, you know, just. And so we were constantly dialoguing about staying present, staying focused, staying positive. And that led to also talking about, what does victory look like? You know, are we here to win? Or are we here to succeed? Right? And what does that look like? And so we had this kind of common vision. And we're in this together. That's common vision. Yep. What does victory look like? Victory looks like we stay healthy. We perform optimally. We don't have to win everything, but we're not going to lose anything. Right. And these types of things were crucial to getting through SEAL training, right? You really had to check your ego at the door and become a radically good teammate and support each other. And ultimately, you know, I realized that's what the instructors were looking for. They're selecting their next batch of teammates, and they're going to go to war with those teammates. And so the big arrogant egos, you know, the captain of the football teams who, you know, good looking guys who everything came easy to, were often the first ones to get washed out. And it's not because they necessarily quit on their own. It's because the instructors looked at them and said, you know what? You're an arrogant guy. You're not going to make a good SEAL, because SEALs have to be humble and team focused. So they make it a little bit especially hard for those individuals.
Wow, yeah.
Right. And as you know, SEAL training isn't about who's the best athlete. There are some phenomenal world-class Olympic style athletes who haven't made it through BUD/S.
Right.
And it's because, we can design, the SEAL instructors can design, and we learn this, we do this at SEAL Fit. We can design things that nobody can get through. But not a single human being can complete it alone. It's got to be done as a team. So I kind of learned that early on, and it wasn't really about me. I've been kicked in the jimmies enough in my life. I knew that I needed the support of my team, and that I could support the team. And so we all kind of gelled. And when a team really gels and gets into that team flow or that team mindset, then you just have all this enormous creativity and power that you don't have as a bunch of individuals kind of working side by side, right? It's a very different thing. And that's obviously the difference between a winning team and a average team. The winning team, everyone's mentally synced up and working toward the same vision and operating with humble service toward each other. Whereas everybody else is kind of out for themselves. They think, well, I'm the hero of this team, and right. Everyone's like an individual trying to just impress, everybody with how damn good they are. And you just, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. You're lucky if it works. Now, the SEALs were an incredible experience for me, both the training as well as the operations. Most of my work was pre 9/11, even though as a reservist, I got recalled and went to Iraq and had some cool experiences. But, my experience is very different than my teammate, Jocko, who was a hardcore combat vet. My skill was in these skills that we're talking about and bringing them to the SEALs and then teaching them to the SEALs to this day, right? To where now the SEALs have implemented Unbeatable Mind in BUD/S, as well as so have the Air Force Pararescue and a lot of other folks. And people think, like when they read my book, The Way of the SEAL, they think the SEALs have always done this and always taught this. They don't, right? Wow. It has literally been very, very recently that they started to bring box breathing and visualization and these more nuanced meditation or mental development skills into the actual training formally.
Wow. It's funny. It's funny, for me, when I train, when obviously it's so different than being a Navy SEAL, but obviously when you're in a 101 combat with not really combat, but a sport, the guy's on the mound, I'm in the box. And we always talk about, same thing. Like you have to learn to breathe at an elite level so that you can really be in the moment. And once that pitch is done, the next pitch, if you watch a big league, hitter or a pitcher, they'll get the ball back, or they'll step out and they'll take a breath to gather themselves and get in. I almost feel like that's the superpower, like the superpower of an elite athlete or an elite performer, is that breath. And I know that's so huge for you. I know you talk about box breathing so much, and 5 in, hold, 5 out, hold. And then you do that for, you say 20 minutes, or it could be an hour or 5 minutes or whatever it is. Can you unpack that a little bit, just about, the breath and, how important that is for all of us, every day in our life, but also at the elite level that you were at?
Sure. It's a great topic. Cause I think there's a lot of now more knowledge about the breath, and also people teaching it, right? And there's a couple of good books out about the value of nostril breathing and deep diaphragmatic breathing and whatnot. I stumbled upon it quite naturally because it was part of my martial arts training, right? Different types of breathing led to different physiological and psychological states, right? So if you want explosive power, you got to breathe a certain way. If you want to be calm, breathe a certain way. And I also learned that when I breathed through my nose and slowed everything down, then my body naturally calmed down. And when I did this over a period of time, when I did it as a daily practice, I found that a lot of the stress that had built up just went away, right? It literally, apparently it gets stored in your body, and then, you can you can get it out of your nervous system by learning to constantly activate your parasympathetic nervous system, which is what you do when you do deep, slow diaphragmatic breathing. It massages your vagus nerve, which activates the parasympathetic response, which is the rest and digest, which counteracts the sympathetic response, which is fight or flight or freeze. And so, of course, in SEAL training, the instructors are trying to put you in fight or flight. And so if you're not doing this, then you get this hyperarousal, and it doesn't go away, because, after that, then they do it again. And after that, they do it again. And then you got the pressure of the performance of day after day. And you get into this state of hyperarousal, and then you stay there as a SEAL in combat and all the training. And then when you get out of the SEALs, you find that, your normal state is hyperarousal. You don't even recognize it. And then it leads to serious problems, post-traumatic stress and all sorts of anxiety and depression and all these things, become the net result of it, because your body has been flooded with adrenaline and epinephrine and all these stress hormones for years, and they do great damage, and they limit our performance. And so I learned that deep diaphragmatic nostril breathing counteracts that effects and triggers the parasympathetic in as much as the sympathetic, and keeps you in balance. So every time the stress response gets triggered, you can rebalance it and get those hormones out of your system and calm down, and calm your heart rate down, and calm everything down. And that's kind of part one of breath training. Is the physiological effect is phenomenal, and it keeps your body in homeostasis. And from that place of homeostasis, your training is improved, your sleep is improved, you're able to receive and feel more effectively the what's going on in your body. It's both your heart and your biome, the feeling states, which are radically important parts of your mental system, right? It's information. It's extraordinarily valuable information. And if you're stressed out and radically hyper aroused, you're not able to pay attention to those signals, which can quite literally lead to serious injury or death. So, when I started teaching breath control to the SEALs, I couldn't use kind of yoga terminology and any kind of metaphysical type language, even though I think that's kind of the next level, and I'd love to talk about that. They were really focused on, how is this going to make me succeed in training and make me a better SEAL? And so the physiological effects of countering the hyperarousal, both in a moment of hyperarousal plus over the long term, then become coupled with a psychological effect of feeling more calm, feeling less agitated, with your mind racing out of control, which led to more clarity and better decision making. So wow, there's a 1-2 punch: physiological balance, and psychological calmness and clarity, which is going to make me a better leader. And the SEAL trainees were like, check, I get that. And I can prove it to them literally in one day, through the training by, we would box breathe before every evolution. And then in the middle of the shitstorm in an evolution, we'd always be coaching, come back to your breath, close your mouth, breathe through your nose, slow it down. And they'd feel immediately how that would calm them down physiologically and it'll lead to a little bit of an opening of a space in their mind. And then we would teach them to insert the positive dialogue and to, be like a sniper with any kind of negative or can't thinking, to just blast it out of their brain. And that's the second skill I talked about, and we would insert and build upon that breathing balance and psychological clarity. We'd insert the second, third, and fourth of these skills, right? The optimism and the positivity, the vision, and radically focusing on one target at a time. These, and when you implement, like I said, if you practice these every day, especially under pressure, then they just have an extraordinary effect on your ability to get shit done and to stay calm and healthy and to have fun doing it, right? And that's why, my boat crew, we were smiling. We got secured early from Hell Week. Hell Week's like 140 hours nonstop training. It's hardcore. And Friday rolls around. Well, first off, Thursday rolls around, and we've been up since Sunday, the week before. And
how do you do it? How do you do it with the sleep deprivation?
Well, breathing. Well, these 4 skills.
Wow.
Right? These 4 skills keep you in a state of optimal flow, right? And so you just keep on energizing yourself. This is the other physiological part about box breathing is the breath is more than just oxygen. It's life force. It's energy. And so when you learn to slow down your breathing and breathe through your nostrils, there's more happening than just balancing with the parasympathetic nervous system. Like you're releasing nitrous oxide, which is getting more oxygen delivered to your cells, and your mitochondria are getting more energy. And also your subtle energy body, which our medical system is just finally starting to acknowledge, but the Ayurvedic and acupuncture systems of India and China have known for centuries, thousands of years. So the subtle energy body is greatly affected by nostril breathing because one of the energy centers flow behind the nostrils and behind the sinus cavities up around the brain and then down the spine, and they wrap around the spine, and everywhere they cross over is one of the chakras or energy centers. And so when you breathe through your nostrils, you're energizing those subtle energy centers. And so you're moving energy up and down your spine. You're keeping your spine and your nervous system very energized and healthy, which then keeps your body, your physical body, healthy, right? You could say that the energy body is really the imprint for the physical body. So if you have a really healthy energy body, then your physical structure is really healthy as well. But if you have stuck energy or you're depleted in your energy body, which is very common if you have unhealthy habits, obviously, or if you're a mouth breather, then you're not energizing and you get these stuck energies, right? Especially where these nadis cross around your spine. And then your physical body eventually manifests dis-ease, right? Or injury. So by doing these practices and not even knowing any of what I just told you back then, I just knew that it worked.
Right.
I didn't know why.
You knew the physiology and the psychology go hand in hand, but you weren't sure what the reason was.
I wasn't sure why. I just knew that I was feeling really calm and having a lot of fun. Whereas, people were dropping like flies around me. And so my team, my boat crew and I, we got to Thursday of Hell Week, and I think the instructors were a little bit miffed that here's this one guy, this ensign who's got a smile on his face on Thursday of Hell Week. And so one instructor,
he's not even supposed to be here. Yeah,
he just jumped in a pool.
Who let that guy in? This one instructor pulls me aside and says, "Mark, I'm going to make you quit." And I'm like, "Okay, fine. Good luck." And I started laughing, and I thought he was joking, but he was dead serious. And so he starts me on 8-count bodybuilders, basically like a burpee. And so he just says, "Start burpees." And when instructor says start burpees, you start burpees. And so I started burpees, and it just, I got to a couple hundred, and I'm like, I don't know, this may never end, right? So I just got to really bring all my skills to bear. And so I literally broke it down. I said, I can do this one at a time. I can do one burpee at a time. And so I would literally do this. I would inhale, exhale through my nose, say to myself, I got this, piece of cake, easy day, one at a time, drop down, do a burpee, come back up and, say Hoorah. And then I was doing this kind of as fast as he needed me to do them, but each burpee became a complete evolution in itself, where I was working on those big four skills. And I got to like 750 or 800, and the guy finally got bored and walked away.
Oh my God.
So I kept doing the burpees for a little while longer. And I'm like, well, this is stupid. So I just ran and joined the class again.
Holy shit.
I mean, how could you physically walk at that point? Like, I mean,
I felt great, right? Again, think about these skills. Here's the deal. You expend energy with a physical effort of a burpee, but then that breath and your imagery and your intention recharges the body. So there's this kind of yin yang, or effort and surrender, right? Or you do the work and then there's a gap after the work. And if you do certain things with your brain and your energy systems, you can completely recover in that gap, right? And so I think you can do burpees forever, really, with that kind of psychology. And here's to prove it. Like 3 years ago, I have a foundation I started to support Navy SEALs or Spec Ops who are suffering from post-traumatic stress. It's called the Courage Foundation. And I started this thing called Burpees for Vets, and I challenged my tribe at SEALFIT to do 22 million burpees with me in 2018. And I said, my part, I'm going to do over 100,000 this year. And I did. And we ended up doing, it took us a little longer than a year, but we ended up doing 22 million burpees, and we raised $300,000 for vets, or for the foundation. But on Veterans Day, we decided to break a world's record. So I had a 3-person team, 3 men and 3 women. Believe it or not, all of us were yoga practitioners. And we knew these skills. We had all been practicing these skills we were talking about because they were part of my team. One of them was Greg Amundsen, who's a really amazing athlete and CrossFitter and Krav Maga guy, and Yogi, and few people from my organization. My stepdaughter, Catherine, who's a yoga teacher, and Melanie Slavika, who's a SEALFIT graduate and yoga teacher, and Jim, and one other. And so 6 of us, 3 men and 3 women, we did 36,393 burpees in 24 hours.
Oh my gosh.
And the former world record was 14,000. And we had this really cool elaborate plan. And we stuck to the plan, and we went out like a bat out of hell. And this whole thing was videotaped for 24 hours straight, because the Guinness Book of Records has to, they require you to videotape this. People said it was incredible because it was live streamed too. And they watched us kick it off, and we're just like, bam, 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 one burpee after another. And then rotating and just boom, 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 totally locked on. And then they would some of them kind of came onto the live stream at 2 a.m, and we were still there. Bam, 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 bam. And when we finished, we had more energy than when we started. Now, mind you, we were really happy it was over, because we were about ready to blow our brains out of boredom.
Right.
But we had more energy than when we started, or the same amount, because we were practicing these skills. It's extraordinary.
Wow,
the power of the breath. Yeah,
that is extraordinary.
So that's it. The breath also, I'll just say one more thing. I mentioned metaphysical.
Yeah, no, I love
earlier.
this.
So metaphysical is beyond physical. So beyond the physical, you have the psychological, and beyond the psychological, you have the subtle or the spiritual. And here's what happens when you take on a breath practice in earnest, and you can, and it's more, and you do it more for growth than just for sports performance or peak performance or a hack, is that the breath, because the breath is life itself, it's life's force, it's consciousness, it's energy, it's aliveness. You begin to connect with that aliveness, and you begin to enervate yourself with it, and it begins to become the, a wave that you surf inwardly to connect with your own inner, own deeper conscious awareness. And so, but it doesn't work unless you've gone through the stages of calming the body, because an agitated body leads to an agitated mind, which is a death knell for anybody who wants to try to meditate and go deeper. And this is why people fail with meditation today, is because their body and brain are too agitated. They're too stressed. So first we have to undo the stress and calm ourselves down and get back into balance. And then we energize our energy, subtle energy systems. And then we're able to ride that breath deeper. So the breath is the bridge between the body and the mind and the spirit. And you just keep walking that path deeper and deeper into the interior realms, where then you find, all the answers that you're looking for. You used to look outside yourself, but the breath then guides you to find the answers inside.
Just for our listeners and the everyday person that's like, man, that would be tough to do that. Like, how long is 5 minutes enough? Is 2 minutes, like, to get started on a breathing practice?
5 minutes is good for the arousal control, which is the first step, right? The way I teach it now is basically in 5 stages, but they should be done independently until you get until you have enough progress where then you can combine them, right? What I mean by that is, if you're really stressed out, you don't do all 5 stages right away. You just work on arousal control, calming the physiology. The 5 stages but when you're advanced enough, then you can do them in these stages. First is you just sit down and begin to breathe for arousal control, to calm your body down from whatever's going on in your day life right now. And in 5 rounds, or 3 to 5 minutes, if you got it. If you're going to do a 20, 25 minute practice, and 3 to 5 minutes is enough for that. So you're not doing anything but just breathing through your nose, and that 5 count in, 5 count hold, 5 count out, 5 count hold, or just the 5 count in, 5 count out, just for arousal control to de-stress. The second stage is concentration. Another reason that people fail in meditation is, and I learned this from Zen, right? Zen, the beginning practices of Zen are concentration practices. And it's to radically focus your mind on one thing to the exclusion of all else. And then when you do, wander, which you will, split your attention, or your attention, leaves that one thing, then you develop the skill of noticing and bringing your attention back to that one thing. So we call that attention control and concentration training. So that's step 2. So the way we do this is to concentrate on an imagery or a mantra. And they both work. And I combine them. So I have a positive mantra and an image in my mind, and I combine them, and it keeps my mind radically focused on just that to the exclusion of all else. That's concentration. So what happens with this is that it takes a lot of effort, and it's like doing barbell curls for your brain. Like, you really have to turn up the gas, using the metaphor of driving. You step on the gas pedal and you give it more energy to hold your attention there. And that really strengthens your mind. It gives you great powers of concentration. And this is one of the reasons that Navy SEALs get a lot of shit done. Like, they're really powerful. Like, look at what Jocko has accomplished, or I've accomplished, and others. It's because we have that. Navy SEALs have concentration training wired, right? So that's step 2. Arousal control is step 1. Attention control and concentration is step 2. And we want to do that for a period of time, or if you're advanced, then that's the next 5 minutes. Because what that does is it declutters your brain. And it pushes all those other thoughts away. Everything that you normally would be thinking, all those patterns of thoughts that arise, it pushes them away and holds them at bay. And then the third phase I call mindful awareness. And this is essentially where you take your foot off the gas pedal and you allow content, i.e. thoughts, to re-arise in your mind, but you you've already created it, but you deliberately also create a separation between, a metacognitive separation between those thoughts and you as a witness or an observer. So I use the metaphor when I teach SEALs of a sniper team. You have the spotter and then you have the sniper. And so the sniper is the concentrated thoughts and emotions and the doing, and the observer, the spotter, is the spotter. And the spotter and the sniper work together, but they're actually 2 aspects of your mind, right? We always have this observing, witnessing aspect. And then we have the sniper who's, thinking, acting, planning, strategizing, obsessing, ruminating, right? And so what we do is we acknowledge the observer, and we train the observer to take overwatch, to always be watching, and then to not identify. And so you then identify as the observer and instead of as the thinker. I mean, you are both, right, but you're not then merged with your thoughts. You're not. Is
that conscious, subconscious?
No, subconscious is something different. Subconscious is part of the contextual awareness, contextual mind that bleeds up into conscious thinking, but it's beyond your conscious control. It's just happening to you because it's been programmed in or patterned in. So that's part of the sniper, but it's hidden from the sniper. But the observer can then begin to see how the subconscious patterns arise and then become latched onto by your conscious thinking mind. And then it's like you just go for a ride. And you don't need to be going for a ride, So this mindful awareness, you begin to see these patterns that arise from the subconscious. You see, negativity, you see how that's affecting you, and you develop the skill to curate the thinker, right? And so you very deliberately begin to cancel out negative thoughts, to eradicate fear-based patterns, and to curate positive qualities and productive focusing. And I call that feeding the courage wolf. It's a big part of that second skill that we talked about. It's trained in this part of the, as part of this meditation practice that I've developed. And that's the third step. The fourth step is visualization. And this is where like I talked about earlier, you create a future image of the end state that you're desiring. So for the SEALs, that was their mission success. So all the SEALs, we would use imagery, we use video and pictures, and we would all, collectively see and talk about what victory looked like, so that we all had the same image in our mind of what that looked like. And then we would practice it in rehearsals, and then when we would then go execute, we always had that with us. We knew what victory looked like. We didn't care exactly how to get there, right? And so that's why we were able to plan on the fly, and we expected things to not go well or to fail. And we would always just keep on driving toward victory because we knew what that vision looked like, while being extraordinarily adaptive and problem solving along the way, which, by the way, is a very useful skill in today's world, which is VUCA. It looks a lot like
VUCA, yes.
Battlefield, So that fourth part of the practice is to visualize that future state of you in your ideal health and a whole human being, as evolved as you possibly can be in this lifetime, and doing what you're meant to be doing in this lifetime, fulfilling your calling. Now, most people have trouble locking onto that vision. And so there's some preparatory work that we do in my program, Unbeatable Mind, and we help them kind of uncover that passionate calling and then to create and develop this vision. But it can also be done with a team for just an objective, like launching a business or a product line, or, becoming a Navy SEAL, or even just a mission. And so we have that. That's step 4. And then the fifth part, which is the most powerful part of the meditation, is just complete surrender to silence, to stillness. And that's non-efforting. So you've turned in, and what's happening here is you are connected with the observer, and you kind of turn the flashlight around of the observer. Instead of looking outward, quote unquote, outwardly toward your thoughts and emotions, you turn inwardly and you look for pure awareness itself. And it's like awareness looking for itself can't not find itself. And that practice is extraordinarily powerful. And it's very akin to some of the highest stages of some of the Eastern practices you find, like Zazen or even yoga's samadhi, because you're getting out of the thinking. You're actually ultimately, you're using your mind to find what I call the witness, and then you're using the witness to move beyond the mind itself. And when you find that and you begin to cultivate that, everything changes in your life. And you end up with, a lot of knowledge that is like spontaneous knowingness. And there was a Japanese term when I first really started thinking about this a long time ago. It was called Shibumi, which means effortless perfection. And it's like, you might think that's the same as flow, like in a sports performance where, like you're just completely in the zone, and the ball just kind of lands in your glove, right? And I've seen some extraordinary everyone has, right? Wow, how did that happen, right? So that's definitely a flow state, but that's basically built upon a lot of training, greasing the groove of physiological movements and psychological patterns that allow that to happen. And so it's something that you already know how to do. What I'm talking about is what the yogis call direct perception of knowledge that you have no business knowing. Because you're receiving it from this non-dual realm, the source of all things. And so, like, I've got a program now in my company called Exponential Mindset, where I'm trying to teach leaders how to do this, so that teams and leaders can have this spontaneous creativity and the spontaneous intuition, this knowing without knowing why or how but it doesn't matter. You know it, and the information is solid and you can act on it. And so this meditation practice that I've developed, I really should come up with a cool name for it. But right now I call it the Box Breathing Continuum, which kind of belays its power. It has these 5 steps to it. And they're each one is a practice in and of itself. And this is, I think, frankly, if you could say, what if I were to be on my deathbed right now, which of course I'd be like 180 years old and as fit as I am right now, and I just decided to check, I'd be deciding to check out. So I wouldn't be on my bed.
Take me, Lord. Take me now.
I'd be sitting in meditation or walking on the beach, and then I'd be like, okay, I'm done. That's the way I want to go out. But if I, when I get there and someone says, what contribution did you make? And I say, well, I taught people how to do this, what I just talked about. Because there's so much misinformation or lack of information about mental training, and people think it's woo-woo or some sort of weird esoteric thing, or that it's the same thing as just listening to a guided visualization on Headspace, and it's not. It's a very, very discrete and disciplined process of training these different aspects of your whole mind and your brain, and they're 2 different things.
And you can train that. Like, I think people think, when people get the mindset up, that's just who I am. That's how I was raised. That's like, it's not true. Like, you can that's the quintessential fixed mindset that Carol Dweck talks about. But 95% of humanity is in there where they don't have the time, they don't have the energy, they don't think about it, they're not listening to this podcast. Right. And then their mind is trained by their family, by culture, by TV, by social media. Right. And guess what? The results will speak for themselves. Exactly. Right? So, if you want to be the person that part of you knows you can be in this life, because there's part of you in everybody that at one point or somewhere in your deepest, maybe it's when you wake up in the morning or, when things fall apart, you're like, I know I can be more, do more. I just don't know how to do it. Right. If you want to be that, then you have to retrain your mind. And unfortunately, it's like that piece of clay. You have to unmold the clay. You have to mash it back up into a ball and then start from scratch, right? It's very difficult to just train over those patterns because those underlying patterns they're still there. Right. You have to deconstruct all the mental models and the biases and the subconscious programming and patterning, and then reconstruct your mind from scratch. Yeah. It's not as hard as it sounds, and there's a distinctive process for doing it. And that's what I really love to do is teach that. Well, you talked about in Staring Down the Wolf, I put it on my refrigerator for my kids to see. You said you have to attack doubt with action. That's right. Yeah. So I love that. But here's I'm sorry. You get me excited. Go ahead, bro. No, go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah. There was really quick. You talk about. There's 2 things I wrote down, brother, from that book that I love so much. There's so much I could go, but these 2 things I loved because one of them kind of goes towards baseball because it's such a game of failure. 70% of the time you're failing. And you're, hey man, good job. But it's like, no, I'm still failing 7 out of 10 times. I'm a mess. I'm a mental mess and I'm trying to perform. It's crazy. And I love when you said, because, people always say, fear is, false evidence appearing real. But you said failure expected. Are you ready? I love that because we're going to fail in life, but are you ready when things don't go just exactly how you think they should go? Are you ready to respond? That's like a classic. Are you ready to recover? Right. Yeah. We never said that. I came up with that. It just popped in my head. I love when that's that direct knowing. Like, someone asked me the other day. I was giving a presentation to Tony Robbins on stage the other day, and then to 5,000 people, 20 minutes. Right. I taught them this exponential abundance idea, and then I did a follow-on webinar because I was like, I got to finish this. So join me in this webinar. And someone asked me, like, what is the background or the origin of this philosophy that you just laid out? And I'm like, I came up with it, right? Now, there is a lot of knowledge that I'm built upon, the backs of giants, but nobody else is talking about the 5 minds of exponential mindset. And so it's because I've trained my mind for so long that I can drop into that non-dual space that I talked about, the 5th stage, and then shit just pops in my head. Like I get these downloads, and it's stuff that I didn't know that I knew because I didn't know it, but it's awesome. And so I write it down. Staring Down the Wolf is a great example. I was meditating one day and suddenly those 7 commitments came to me. I'm like, these are the commitments. I was going to call the book The 7 Commitments That Forge Elite Teams, but I didn't have the 7 commitments in my head. And I meditated and boom, those 7 commitments, courage, trust, respect, growth, excellence, resilience, and alignment came to me. And when you read that book, you recognize, wow, these actually make a lot of sense in that order. Big time.
in that order in order to build resiliency and to overcome your own biases and fears so that you can bring out the best in your team. And I was like, that I don't take credit for that knowledge. I take credit for the pain in the ass effort of writing a book for sure. It's not easy, but that knowledge came from either from some other teacher of mine that's, across the veil, or just from the non-dual world, right? Same thing with this. Now the Box Breathing Continuum is really more through trial and error, but this Exponential Mindset program that I developed that we just launched, the same thing happened, right? It was like I was meditating and reflecting, okay, and then boom, there it was. And the 5 minds, right? I call it, and the whole philosophy is going beyond anything I've taught before, and that is the mind is the creator of everything, including the body, and the body is just a projection of the mind, and so the body is the mind, and so one of the first of the 5 minds is the body mind, and how do we train the body as a mind?
Yes.
Right. And then the second mind is the contextual mind. And this is how do you train to clear up all the biases and negative programming in your subconscious and expand your context of what it means to be human, what you mean to be human in this lifetime. And then the third mind is the strategic mind. And this is really developing the mental models and the strategy and tactics. And this is where, like, you could say doubt is limited by action. Well, that's a strategy. So let's create micro goals. Let's develop the OODA loop. Let's think our way to success by thinking well and thinking about our thinking. That's the strategic mind. And the fourth mind, and I didn't come up with this one, but I made it part of my 5 minds, is the extended mind. And this is how do we partner with technology and spaces and other places, or, spaces and places and other people. So they call it technological cognition, situated cognition, which is places, social cognition, which is people. And how do we leverage those effectively to expand and extend our minds as opposed to contract and limit them? That's the extended mind. And the fifth one is integrated mind. And this is treating your mind, your whole life and mind as an integrated whole, internal, external, self and others, and living at the center of those. And it's extraordinarily powerful philosophy. My point was that, I didn't think that one into being with my rational mind. It just came to me through that direct perception as a result of the meditation practice that I have. I got way off track, but I think back to staring down the wolf. But doubt isn't limited by action. This is a little bit like the saying we had in the SEALs that failure is not an option, in the sense that people think of it one way, but we mean it in another. So you could listen to that failure is not an option and think, oh yeah, SEALs can't fail. And the reality is we say that failure is not an option because we expect to fail. And so there is really no such thing as failure. They're just learning.
I love that.
And so doubt is eliminated by action is similar. And most people think, oh, you've got to actually do something. And so when I look at that, I say, this is one way to look at it. And it is helpful because a micro goal or getting off the X or moving toward the sound of gunfire gives you information, right? You get an immediate feedback loop, then you can activate the OODA loop, observe, orient, make a new decision, and then act. And so in that way, you get through the uncertainty and the ambiguity of VUCA because you just keep moving and learning and moving and learning and moving and learning. But the other side of it is that doubt is eliminated through the action of inaction, which is taking the time in those gaps to look within and to ask yourself, what's the right thing to do now, and to listen to your intuition. And so it doesn't look like action to other people. And you might have other people running around like chicken with their head cut off, thinking they're, doubt's eliminated, got to do action. But we always teach it this way: pause, breathe, think, and then act. And so there's action and inaction and inaction in action. And I know that sounded really clumsy, but
right.
First you look inwardly for the answers, and it looks like inaction, but you're doing something.
Yeah.
Right? You're being a whole person and allowing your whole mind to inform you as opposed to just getting busy. We have a bias toward busy, outwardly action, toward doing action in our culture. And what I teach is to have an equal bias toward non-doing action, which is the action of being and internally asking questions. There's still action there, but it's subtle mental action.
Gosh, so good. Can you break down a little bit? Like, when you talk about what is your routine? Like your morning, like bookending your day, your morning routine, your night routine. Sure. Could you break that down for us? So
I will,
just
yeah.
Interested what it is.
And it's basically what I teach. I'm a living embodiment of the Unbeatable Mind, teachings. And it might seem a little extreme. You don't have to do it like I do it, because it doesn't take as much time. I take a lot of time because I enjoy that, right? It's
Right.
some of the best time, and some of my best quote unquote thinking comes during my morning ritual. So I wake up between 5 and 6, and I have a practice called first thoughts, first words. So, we wake up and usually we're thinking about our dreams, or, immediately click into the subconscious programming that bubbles up, right? And a lot of people do that, and they pick up their iPhone and check their email.
Yeah.
Or the news, right?
Yeah.
So I curate the quality of my thoughts immediately, starting with gratitude and my mantras, right? First words and first thoughts. I use the restroom and I drink a tall glass of cold water with gratitude, which, physiologically recharges the battery, right? Tops off the battery, because, you dehydrate quite a bit at night. And so your neurochemical, neurological processing is going to be diminished because you're missing some hydration. And then I begin my practice of box breathing that I just described, the continuum. And that takes me about 20 to 30 minutes. I do my morning ritual with my wife, which is great for relationships, by the way. And so she does her part and I do my part. And then we come together and we have a contemplation practice. Right? And so we'll contemplate, some spiritual readings, and we'll journal and we'll talk about it. And then we meditate on that. And in that meditation, I'm really working on that non-dual, fifth stage part. When that's all done, so we'll spend until often between 7 and 7:30 doing that. So often a good hour and a half to 2 hours. It's really amazing.
It's awesome.
And also get out and get some sunlight on our deck. We're in California overlooking the ocean. So it's just a really beautiful time.
Tough life.
It's tough. And I used to, rush off. Of course, if I was in the SEALs, we'd rush off and be physically training by 5 a.m. And you got to, if you're in that structure, you got to do that. Right.
Right.
So your morning ritual is going to be short, right? It might be the first words, gratitude, box breathing for 5 to 10 minutes, and then you're out. And then you get the rest of this in somehow during the day. But for me, if you can carve out the time to do this, it'll change your life, because that whole idea of winning in your mind before you step foot in the battlefield and learning things that you didn't know that you knew or even needed to know, all this comes from that morning ritual. And so then at the end of that ritual, before I go, that's when I pull out my schedule and make sure that, say, okay, this is what the person I was yesterday decided I was supposed to do today. Does this still make sense? Because I'm a new person today. And I've just finished my practice and I've asked really good questions, and there might be something on my schedule which doesn't make sense anymore. Doesn't pass the the urgency and importance test, or isn't in alignment anymore with who I am. So I can get radically focused. And I always ask myself, what's the most important thing for me to do today professionally? And what's the most important thing to do today personally? And what's the most important training that I haven't already accomplished today? And I make sure that I note those down and commit to getting those done. I call those the most important targets and most important training. And that helps keep me radically focused during the day, because that one thing, I don't quit until I get that done. Everything else is just filler and bonus after that. And that training, I don't quit until I get that done. There's not a single day that I'll go without training my body. And when I train, now this is the second important part, because the next thing I do, I have build my smoothie, and then I head into the gym. I kind of sip my smoothie a little bit before and a little bit after my physical training. So then I do, at my office, I've got a yoga mat, and I train Aikido and yoga. So I got my yoga mats and Aikido mats. And then I've got my SealFit kind of functional gym area in my hyperbaric chamber, which you got to experience.
Thing's awesome.
Yeah. So I do 20 minutes of yoga with my wife, another 20-minute of seated meditation. And then I do my functional fitness workout, weighted, it's like a CrossFit style workout. And I usually keep it to 20, 25 minutes, because that's all you need, right? But it's high intensity and it's high variety. It's different every day. And we just have a blast. And that's when the music comes on and we're having fun. After that, then I'll get in the chamber, unless I've got something else going. But I don't schedule, and I also do my writing in the morning. So I get all that done by 8:39, then I write until 10. Sometimes I'll write in the chamber, and I don't take any meetings or podcasts or anything until 10 o'clock. So my formal professional day starts at 10. And I know most people listening can't do that. But if you're a business owner, you can, even though most people don't think they can because they think, oh, I've got to get up and, lead meetings and do this and that. And I'll tell you, though, that you'll make much better decisions if you have a morning ritual, even if it's just half hour, or 45 minutes, and it has these qualities. And, I'll tell you more about the two more things is my physical training, even though I described it as, 20 minutes of fun, it is, but we always make it integrated training, meaning part of the Unbeatable Mind training is that we train ourselves physically, mentally, emotionally, intuitionally, and spiritually every time we train. We do that through intention, through our internal dialogue, through the imagery, through those big four skills we talked about, and through breathing. So I always build those and weave those into my physical training so that you're training in an integrated or holistic manner, not just training the body. You're training the body, the mind, the emotions, your intuition, your spirit. So that my training time, physical training time, then becomes more of a stacked practice. So you add that to the morning routine. And then I do spot drills during the day. So I'll have a period of deep work, and then I'll take a few minutes just to recover with a spot drill. I'll do box breathing. I'll take a walk outside. I'll do something. And we've got hundreds of these things that are just short. Stacking practice, right? And then at the evening ritual is much shorter, but the evening ritual, and some people once I get back into the family, they're like, you get swept away and it's really hard to do. Great. Just stop, sit in your car for 5 minutes when you get home before you re-enter, right? And the evening ritual is basically, it's a retrospective, right? You start breathing deeply through your nose. Doesn't have to be box breathing, just calm, diaphragmatic. We call it tactical breathing. 5 count in, 5 count out. And then what you do is you mentally go back to the beginning of the day and you do what we call a recapitulation. And you review all the major things that you did during the day, starting with your morning ritual. And you give it a little plus or a minus or neutral, right? Pluses, you just stacking up successes. If it's a minus, you pause there or you come back to it and go, okay, what was off with that? What didn't feel good? What went wrong? What could I have done better? And is there anything that I need to do now or tomorrow to clear up some negative energy, to eradicate a regret? Because a lot of times, you might be said something or you did something that you're like, ugh, I wish I hadn't done that. And so now is an opportunity to clear that up. Call your friend, call your boss, call your, subordinate, call your peer, send them a text, say, hey, sorry, I was off this afternoon or this morning and, just apologize for that. I was having a moment, but I acknowledge it, And wow, what an incredible practice that is to clear up regret. The point is you don't want to go to bed that night with any regrets, any negative energy. You want to stack up the successes and the wins, acknowledge them, acknowledge the progress you made, and also learn from what you used to think of failures. Instead of failures, now you just say, oh, look at that. There was a good learning. There's a good learning. There's a good learning. And that evening ritual, if you get good at it, can be done in just a few minutes. It's extraordinary. And then everything else is really more stuff that you'd learn about in, peak performance or hacking communities, So yeah, there's a certain way that I eat, and there's sleep preparation and hygiene, right? All of that stuff I try to do, but I'm not a maniac with it because I don't think any of that stuff is sustainable if you're a maniac, right? And so I have this rule, I call it the 80-20 rule. And this is how, that comes with any of these hacks, like any of the fueling and nutrition and sleep. 80% of the time, do the best you can. 20% of the time, you're going to fuck up. So don't worry about it.
Right.
Who cares? And I love pizza and ice cream. You know what I mean? So I'm going to eat it.
Yeah. You got to have a pepperoni pizza every once in a while.
Yeah, but I'm not going to eat it every day, right? If I ate it every day, I'd be a fraud, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe once every 2 weeks, a day.
Well, dude, I know you're a huge reader too. I know you talk about reading, you want to get to the goal of reading a book a day, which that would be unbelievable. But you read about
I'm almost there. I'm about 2 to 3 a week.
Wow, 2 to 3 a week. Are there, when you look back at your journey, are there a couple books? Are there 2 or 3 books that have really, that really shaped those ideas in that book? Really kind of brought me to where I am now.
Yeah, Unbeatable Mind was one of them.
Yeah, exactly. Which is an unbelievable book.
But I'm just kidding. But I'm actually partly serious because the writing, that was one of those books that kind of wrote itself, and I learned so much writing that book. I almost felt like I was channeling it. And it's been, it's sold over a million copies. It keeps selling. People read that book. Yeah. I've tried to update it, but I'm like, every time I do it, I'm like, I can't really improve on this. I could improve some of the words, but not the concepts.
Yeah.
But probably the first book that really got me to take personal development seriously was Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. Horrible title, but it was written in like the 1920s, but it's an extraordinary book. And I love how he talks about visualization and having what I call a mind gym with mental advisors. He has a mental board of directors, and he talks about this in his book. And remember, this is written in the 20s. I remember listening to an interview, and he said he really struggled with whether to put that in the book because he thought he'd be ridiculed, and he was. But when you read it, he says that his mental advisors included like Abraham Lincoln and other notables, and he developed a relationship with them in his mind. And he said he'd started to get information and developed a relationship with them that was very, very real. And even when he got off track and didn't go into his mental board of advisors and engage them in conversation and ask for their support, like when he went back there, they would give him a hard time. How cool is that? I'm like, so here's this guy, he's writing this, and I'm like, oh, wow, that's cool, because I'm kind of having that experience. I read that book like when I was 20. I said, I'm kind of, I had that experience when I was swimming with visualization, and I'm like, there's a lot going on that in the inner world that I think is really valuable. So I believed him, and I added that to my practice. So that was like a powerful, powerful book. And what got me into Eastern philosophy was Paramahansa Yogananda's The Autobiography of a Yogi. This is really his autobiography, but he talks about all these other yogis from the East Indian tradition. And when I say yogi, I don't mean the stretchy, bendy American yogi. I'm talking about those who are developing their minds to the highest levels possible, which is what yoga is. Yoga is the art of union or yoking, your mind and your spirit, or your soul. And it's the oldest science of mental development. And most people in this country mistake it for stretchy, bendy, Lululemon, sweat fest. And it's not, it has nothing to do with that. That's the postures or the asanas were simply to keep your body healthy. So as like I described earlier, your body is a fit vessel for the mind so that you can go deeper into the mental training. So the Autobiography of Yogi, like that's the only book that Steve Jobs had on his iPad.
Really?
Yeah. And when I found that, it just blew my mind about what the possibilities are for the human mind and the human being. And like we in the West, we've contracted ourselves into such a small, narrow lane of possibilities. And when you read a book like that, and now I've read literally hundreds of old ancient yogi and Tibetan Buddhist type texts, I don't need them anymore because I can find it on my own with my own practice, but it was very inspirational, helpful in the early days. And also it was an incredible motivator. And it's what I believe in reincarnation, and it's what made me realize that I had been here before. Like the yogis say that it takes 1,000 lifetimes to find this philosophy of training, mental development, to actually take it on as a practice and believe in it. And I knew that I had because I believed it right away. And this is why I took to Zen, because Zen is the same as yoga. It's basically mental development. It came from yoga, believe it or not. Zen was taught to the Shaolin monks by a yogi named Bodhidharma, who had come from Tibet. And so that book is extraordinary. And a lot of the principles, that I teach really are distilled from, these giants like Yogananda and Napoleon Hill. And so I give them credit. But I found out early on, especially when training 20-year-old Navy SEAL candidates, that they don't want the metaphysical language and wrapper. They don't believe it. A lot of them, their religion tells them that it's, they can't do it, right? I have like Navy SEAL Christians who won't step foot in my yoga studio because they falsely believe that yoga is somehow in contradiction to their religion. And it's just because back to that mental model, they've got a flawed mental model of what Jesus really said. And also what Jesus said and taught was distorted by the church. And they distorted, and they manipulated his words to make people think that that Jesus was the only, son of God.
Right.
And everyone is the son of God, right? We have, the spark of divinity in all of us. And what the yogis taught was, and Jesus, I believe, was taught by these same people in his lost years. They knew that every single human being has the capacity to develop themselves as an enlightened being, just like the Buddha or Jesus, and possesses great power and potential in a positive sense, right? If you want to live a long time, think and act like a yogi, right? And there are examples of yogis living hundreds, if not thousands of years. It's possible. The human being, the mind is infinitely full of infinite potential. And it's completely within our grasp to be able to plumb the depths of our mind and to develop the skills for longevity, develop the skills to think with that spontaneous ingenuity that, I was talking about. And I believe, honestly, guys, that we have to do this as a race. People think about human 2.0 as us merging with technology. I think it's us just going back to our ultimate pure potential by doing these mental practices augmented by AR and VR, right? So we can partner with technology to develop our whole capacity, our whole mind. And we can use technology like Google and we can free up time so that everybody on this planet has 2 to 3 hours in the morning to train. That's what technology is good for. But to think that we're going to become all this cyborg race and lose our humanity, I think that's a dystopian kind of negative view of the future, because we have all the potential we need inside of us.
Yeah. Oh man. This has been so great, Mark. I can't thank you enough for everything. No, seriously, it's been unbelievable.
Thanks for letting me go down that rabbit hole there.
Oh, dude, I love it, man. This is so great. And you're for all our listeners, I mean, get the books that Mark's written: Staring Down the Wolf, Unbeatable Mind, Way That Seal, Kokora Yoga. We didn't even. I mean, I wanted to get into Kokora Camp 20 times. The One Thing 3-piece. There's so many great things, but they're all in your books, man. They're all in your books. And I think the greatest thing, Mark, that you talk about is like everyone can do this stuff. Everyone can have a morning routine practice. Everyone can change their thinking. Everyone can go into their do shadow work too. Right. That's a whole nother thing, but there's so many things that we can do to have the life that we really want. And I think we get so stuck in our old patterns of, that's just who I am. That's how I was raised. That's my parents. And it's just, that stuff's not true. So the stuff that you unpack today, man, such a gift to our listeners and such a gift, to all of us. And I love the one thing you talk about too, before we go, is, you said a true warrior strives to master themselves so they can be of service to humanity. And I think, serving humanity and being true warriors, I think that's what we're all striving to be. So,
for sure. And the journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step, right? So if you want to take control of your life, you got to take control of your mind. And when do you start? Now. Because if not now, when? Yeah. And you're right. And I believe that everyone has a calling, but that calling is in service, right? So in order to do it, you got to find it and you got to develop yourself so you can do it. That's self-mastery. But then as you're doing it, it's always going to be in service. It might even just be to one person, like a child, your child. That could be your service, right? Being the best possible father or mother that you can be. Or it might be serving, as a teacher or as a podcaster. But all of us have a service to give, but we have to be fully aware and fully capable to do that. That's why self-mastery and service, are hand in glove. And a lot of people mistake that. People just dive into service and their bodies and minds are out of control and out of balance and unhealthy, and they can't serve properly. They burn out.
Yeah. Wow. So where can our listeners find you, brother?
You can find me in my headquarters if they want to do burpees here.
Chinch, get on that. We got to go out there and do those burpees.
The term burpee just takes me back to just horrible thoughts in my own head. So every time you're talking about the burpees,
you got to learn to love burpees.
I know.
They're a great travel companion. So, quick fun story. Whenever the new SEAL candidates would come to SEAL Fit, we'd be like, okay, go in the gym and get me a wall ball and a burpee. And so they're running around the gym. They find the wall balls. And they're like, they'll go to my CrossFit members and like, Coach Devine said to find the burpees. You know where he puts them? And they just start laughing.
That's great.
That's so great. We do the same thing sometimes in baseball with like a bat boy would come in and we would go, hey man, listen, can you get the key to the batter's box? And they go like, where's the key to the batter's box? And we'd always send him over to the other manager. Hey,
Right.
Dusty Baker has the key. So he'd go running over and be like, excuse me, Mr. Baker, Sean Casey sent me over here. Want to know if you had the key to the batter's box. And then Dusty would be like, you got to go to the umpire's room. They have it down there.
Awesome.
And we would get this guy just going all over the place.
I love it.
It's so great.
Yeah, back to your question. MarkDevine.com is my personal website. It's got a lot of information, all the books, links, and stuff like that. Unbeatablemind.com is our is the kind of the mental training and our team training. Mm-hmm. And then SealFit.com is where we do the hard hitting events. So if you're an athlete and you want to experience like Hell Week, and learn the big 4 skills while you're under pressure for 50 hours nonstop, no sleep, then go to SealFit.com. We run those events only twice a year, but they're pretty extraordinary.
Wow.
And my podcast, you mentioned Mark Devine
the Mark Devine Show.
Got a really cool guest. It's an opportunity for me to talk to really cool people and interview people who are doing amazing things in the world.
So many cool guests. I listen to your podcast. It's unbelievable. And that your podcast is of service to me and so many different people, some good friends of mine listen to it. So thank you for that too, man. It's awesome. Yeah. Hoorah. Yeah. Hoorah, man.
Thanks for your time today. You guys are awesome. I appreciate it.
Dude, thank you. Thank you so much, brother. And we will be in touch down the road. And best of luck to you, man. For real. Best of luck. Keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah. Hoorah. You too. All right.
Okay, buddy. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, brother. Bro.
Wow, man. There was so much in there. I don't even know what you start with your thoughts on the stuff you were saying, because many places in my head.
I think one of the biggest things is, man, this guy is first off really special. Obviously the things he's done, but I think also too, I think the thing I loved is, that bookending your day, you create your habits, then your habits create you. Like we create so many bad habits. We just react to life all the time. We react to our phones. We react to alcohol, we react to weed, we react to drugs on the weekends. You live your life, say, I hate my job. And then all of a sudden on the weekends, sometimes you get away. Like, what are you getting away from? I think when you language your life and you get up in the morning with gratitude on your mind, that morning routine becomes so important.
Yeah.
I just know for me, it has, man, over these last few years.
When we called it barbell curls for your brain, that stuff was pretty strong. Yeah, right. I love that.
It's true because, hey, listen, you want to get a stronger chest, you got to do bench press, you got to do push-ups. You want to get a stronger mind, you want to get better perspective, more gratitude in life. It works if you work it. You got to put the time in and take a few minutes. And what's funny is I just feel like we all have the time. We didn't even get into it, but he says, he believes that all human beings are staying at a level where there's 20 times that their potential's out there. We just don't take the time to do it. And I think one thing is if you can get good sleep and wake up early and start a meditation practice, journal for 5 minutes, journal for 5 minutes. Take the time to box breathe 5 minutes, dude. It's, 5 in, hold, 5 out, hold. Do that for 5 minutes. There's so many cool things you can do. Yeah. Take a walk in the morning, get your circadian rhythm going, get your vitamin D in you. There's just so many different cool things you can do. Get to bed a little earlier,
Right. Well, I like the part about getting to bed, like clearing your head, of all the negative shit that was in it, because I have trouble with that big time. You gotta clear your head enough so when you go to sleep, you can actually put your head on a pillow and not be stressing out about what you did or what you need to do again. That's
what you need to do.
Yeah.
Well, I think too when he was talking about your physiology creates your psychology, the body-mind connection. Get moving. Mm-hmm. Give me 10 to 20 minutes. Go take a walk for 30 minutes. I guarantee your day will be different.
Absolutely.
If go to the gym, Planet Fitness, it's $10 a month. Mm-hmm. We all have $10 a month. Go down there and ride the bike, lift some weights, move your body, get your energy moving.
Change your physiology. I always say
your physiology changes your psychology. Yeah, your physiology changes your psychology. This stuff really works, man. I mean, this is a lot of the stuff that I put into my life in these last few years. It works. I mean, and don't believe me, do it. Right. Try it. It really does work. The stuff works. And don't, it's so easy to just say, I can't do that. Yeah, you can. Just do it.
It's also so easy to say, we've had a number of guys on, this man, don't forget, this man was a Navy SEAL, and not just a Navy SEAL. He was technically the number one Navy SEAL when he was in the Navy SEAL. So he's not, he's most certainly, he's found a process. We're never going to be, you and I are never going to be underwater with 500 people shooting at us to kill us and try to figure out how to keep your head from losing yourself and move forward. He's talking about going towards the gunfire. Like I can't imagine you couldn't do that without all of the practices that he built up in that time to get him to where he is now. And it just, man, by 10 o'clock in the morning, the things he does, if I could do all of those in 1 week, I'm like, great week, really productive.
Great week. So true, man. Well, I love when those in the books are so good, but Staring Down the Wolf, reading that was such a great book. But he talks about it's like it's the old Native American, where he talks about what Michael DeSanti talked about a few episodes earlier. You're either going to feed the courage wolf or you're going to feed the fear wolf.
Right.
And how many times in life do we feed the fear wolf? Oh man, you get the maze going. Oh, I can't believe I said this. What do I do here? Blah blah. What am I going to do? I can't. I don't feel like I'm enough, and this and that. Or do you fear the courage wolf? Courage wolf, which is fear, having the fear but taking action anyway. Having the fear, but doing things that say, no, I'm going. Like he says, I'm going for the gunfire. I'm running straight forward. In our lives, at times we got to say, no, I'm running straight for what I want. And I'm not going to just sit in the corner and suck my thumb with the victim mentality. I got to be the champion of my own life and take hold of it and go. Right. Let's go.
Yeah, and with positivity, right? Like, because when you say, when you talk about the burpees thing, think about when you were in high school or in college, and when you had to do burpees, it was like, oh, this is going to suck. So when you say this is going to suck, it would just suck. Like, and when he's saying, I'm going to do 200 million burpees this year.
Yeah, you language it one at a time.
Yeah, one at a time. Yeah. Oh, that was
He
cool.
said, I can do anything one burpee at a time, and I'm going to dominate. Remember, he went to 750, 800. The guy walked away. He's like,
kept going.
Let me do 50 more. Yeah, because you can do anything moment by moment by moment. We get so caught in the future. What do they say? Anxieties in the future, depressions in the past. Like we let's spend moment by moment by moment, getting back into our lives. And Commander Devine epitomizes that and what he does and how he lives his life. What an episode, man. Yeah, what an episode. I had literally 7 more hours of content. We could have gone. I was like, I told him an hour 15. We were right at around an hour 15. I was like, I'm scared if I think this is around 16, I'm getting nervous for myself. So I got to get out of here.
Yeah. So funny. That's great.
So great, bro. Well, listen, Chinch. Great show, bro.
Awesome,
great
man.
show. So thankful for that one.
Yeah.
I love you, man. I'm so grateful that I feel like this podcast is of service to a lot of people, and people that love the game, love life, and studying the mind and all the things that come with baseball and the fun stories. Yeah. But also some of the guests we have like Mark Devine and Michael DeSanti and Brian Johnson. These guys that are really thinking on a different level that we all of us can do if we make that choice. So
that's awesome.
Pretty cool, bro. I love you. For all the people out there, I hope you enjoyed this episode just like we did. You can go find Commander Devine and all the places that he said, and keep downloading us, keep hitting the buttons, subscribing to us, because we're starting to see the numbers go up. We're very grateful for all the people that join us every week. And Chinchy, I will see you Friday, my man. Love you, buddy. Friday.